Hello, I'm Shadan Larki from Awards Buzz here with Stephen Mirrione, the editor of F1 the movie. Stephen, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks very much.
Stephen, forgive me, but I have to begin our interview with the most obvious question, which is what was your relationship to F1 as a sport before coming into this, and how has your relationship changed? How has your appreciation changed having been through the experience?
Sure. Well, my relationship coming in was knowing nothing about the sport, and I kind of used it as an advantage, and because again, the movie we were hoping was going to would appeal to many people who were not familiar with the sport, and that things that were happening in the races and just rules and regulations and who's winning, who's losing, that those would be things that the movie was teaching you as it was going. And so I didn't want to have a vast store of knowledge that I had to kind of erase. So in that sense, I think it helped. And then yeah, I mean, obviously, as I worked on the movie, I started to learn more and more and more, and for sure, just the awareness of the tremendous athleticism of all the drivers. Just even the times having Sir Lewis Hamilton coming into the editing room and working with us and talking us through things. He really inspired me in terms of his relationship to how he drives and the things that he. I mean, he really spoke about it as an artist, I would say, and that was a really great experience. And yeah, like I don't I'll say that 2 years of being so intensely involved in putting things together with the racing and all of that makes me need a little bit of a break from it. But anytime I see it on now, I definitely watch it with a greater appreciation and can kind of keep track of what's going in a different way.
Well, we'll get to the movie in just a second, but you did win an Oscar in 2001 for Traffic. And speaking of sort of craft, what I thought was so interesting was obviously, movies have changed so much in the years. Our relationship to how we view movies have changed. Audiences have become so much smarter. I mean, you know all these things. So how do you think editing as a practice has changed? How has your relationship to your own craft changed in this prolific, amazing career that you've had?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think for me the most important thing and the thing that hasn't changed is I always treat a project like it's a brand new thing. That's one of my favorite parts of the job is after I finish with something, I come in and, unless maybe you're talking about a sequel or something, you could come in and kind of learn everything again for the first time. And you're always, my feeling is I'm never coming into a project with a plan in mind of how it's going to go together necessarily. I'm always reacting and responding to how the material is coming to me, whether those has to do with how the performances are running or being generated, whether it is the kinds of cameras, and certainly in a movie like this, just the immense amount of material that I had to choose from and work with. It's a very different approach putting something like that together than something where, maybe you're on they're only shooting for 30 days and just, grabbing what they can. Each of them provides their own challenge and their own creative challenge. And so in that sense, it's for me, it hasn't, I don't feel the change. If it's changed, I don't feel it because it's so gradual and it's project by project.
That's fascinating. With F1, I mean, you guys were photographed at a number of different races over a long period. There is a lot of footage. And also what I admired so much about the film is the energy of it and
Yes.
really feeling like, I was there and I really did get an appreciation for this sport. So, can you talk about sort of these sequences and, what stays on the cutting room floor? How do you maintain this energy? How do you also balance with the drama that's happening when they're not in a car? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the most exciting things for me about this project was it was an opportunity for the editing to be very expressive. right? Where I could really put forward the attitude of the characters and personally have a real hand in how you were living through the experience of watching the movie. Not every movie is like that. Some movies, different aspects come into the foreground a little bit more. But I was able to really have a lot of fun with that aspect, and again, being expressive with the cuts, but also because it wasn't just straight action. I really, really enjoyed the caliber of all the actors and the performances, and that we were able to also kind of dig into these really intimate human moments where we could feel and some of my favorite moments working on this movie were having like Jerry Bruckheimer come into the editing room to watch something and actually getting him to tear up because we found the tenderness and the emotion in a scene. So yeah, just the contrast of that and having that broad spectrum to work with on this movie was really, really rewarding for me.
Can you give me an example or tell me a little bit more about a moment where you were able to have a little bit more fun with the editing, or you felt like I got to be a little creative there?
Sure, sure. I mean, listen, to begin with, that was happening all the way through.
Mm.
But yeah, I can remember a couple of specific moments that were really fun, and I think a lot of it too came from. I definitely was influenced by the storyboards that we were basing a lot of the race footage, race sequences on. They were really, really well drawn and had really great storytelling built in. And all of that was also based on the script. The script was so well researched. And so I was starting from, I felt like a really great jumping off point to then be able to get creative and find the pieces that made things work. One of the fun things that we were able to do was because we were following the actual season, we were able to kind of change aspects of our story based on things that happened in the actual race. So, for example, at the beginning of the race in Hungary, there was this really dramatic accident that happened at turn one right after the race start. And we luckily had two of our cameras, the cameras that were developed and helped made by Apple, that happened to be in the cars with two drivers that were right behind that accident having happened. And so in our script, originally, a thing happened later on in the race between our two drivers that caused Sonny to have to come in for his first pit stop. But when this happened, I was able to take that moment and find a way to craft it so that it fit into our storytelling. We were able to create then reference that our actors could essentially respond to that accident as if it had been planned all along. So that for me was one of those like really, and there were several instances of that throughout the movie where something that happened in an actual race, we were able to then reconfigure and fold it into our movie and the storytelling that for our movie.
Wow. That's incredible. The thing that pops into my head is like I never would have imagined that editing would have these kinds of sort of on the ground. Do you think like what other challenges maybe does, a novice audience member or whatever maybe we don't think about, what are those sort of inside scoop things about editing that you were able to put in there that, you want people to know about or
Yeah, I
appreciate
mean,
more?
yeah, I mean, one of the things about a movie like F1, because they're shooting in real locations, like and just the even though I had access to an enormous amount of material, there were some scenes where they were being shot basically in one or two takes without a lot of coverage because we only maybe had 5 minutes from the time the national anthem goes until the race start to actually shoot the scene that had to go in the movie.
Wow.
And so a challenge for me is once that's shot, finding a way to make sure not only that it works, but that it works within the language of the storytelling in terms of the cutting patterns and things like that with a very limited amount of footage, right? With a very limited amount of coverage and not and hopefully never making it feel that the audience is aware that, oh, this scene they didn't have anything to choose from, and this scene he had an infinite amount of choices to choose from. So, hopefully by the time we're done weaving everything together, it all feels as one piece. Those things don't stick out, I would say. And I think we accomplished that. I hope so.
No, absolutely. I just assumed you had a lot of footage. I had no idea that, there were. Of course, that makes sense now to
Yeah.
know that, yeah, there's constraints and things like that. But wow. Stephen, as I let you go, is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you just wanted to mention or, you know?
I mean, I love talking about the fact that I could really see that over the course of making this movie that the filmmaking team improved in a way that kind of matched the way the team in the movie improved. And just that metaphor of teamwork and working together and supporting each other, it was really meaningful to kind of to see that actually happen with the filmmaking crew because so often you're on a movie and you've got 7 or 8 months, 9 months, and for this we shot over the course of like a year and a half, I believe. And I can really see like those first races in Silverstone to what we were doing in Abu Dhabi. It just really it was really satisfying to see that improvement in just us as filmmakers.
And just to close out, what is sort of the biggest piece of F1 that you will carry with you, whether it's a memory, a lesson, something about your craft?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, just the team, my team, my specific team, the way the teams all work together, and Joe as a director, I think is really set that tone, and he always has a tremendous team around him, and just yeah, I mean, I obviously this movie, I would say in a really profound way, if if I hadn't had the contribution, like brilliant artistic contribution from all the other creative forces aligned on the movie, I couldn't have had as much fun and I couldn't have done what I did. So I really appreciated that.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to listen to people to talk about the thing that they love. And not only do I have a greater appreciation for F1, but also editing and your work in particular. So I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks so much.